Hey BookTube, time for a March wrap-up.
I got my ticket for the long way round.
Let's talk about fantasy, post-apocalyptic, sci-fi. Yeah, I read some good stuff in March, so let me tell you about it. First up, Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. This was narrated on audio by Amanda Dolan. And it is an interesting story. And it's about a girl named Mare Barrow. You know, I have to say that the strength of this book for me, the real appeal, was the names of things. Like Mare Barrow. Isn't that a great name for a main character? The rebel group is called the Scarlet Guard. I think these are great. These are great names. The book is all about a society where you have the Red Bloods and the Silver Bloods. And the Silver Bloods have special powers. They run the kingdom. And the Red Bloods are basically ruled by the Silver Bloods. And Mare Barrow is our main character, and come to find out, she's a red-blooded person, and she finds out she has powers. But how can this be when she's not a silver blood? So, you know, then the story becomes all about, you know, the drama that happens after that, and then the continuing story of, okay, brewing rebellion, you can imagine, overthrow the kingdom, get rid of the bad guys. It's really good. I was really impressed with the action and the way the thing moved along. I thoroughly enjoyed the characters, although I don't think Mare Barrow was exceptionally clever at times. There were times when she would make decisions and I would think, what are you doing? What? And I have to say that I figured out the bad guy pretty early on, and so that made it a little bit predictable for me. And when I say that Mare Barrow wasn't clever, I just mean that I kind of got a little bit ahead of her in terms of figuring things out, and I don't like it when that happens. I don't want to be smarter than my main character. So that said, I still gave it 4 stars. A solid 4 stars, because I think it was above average, and I'm really looking forward to the sequel. Soulless by Gail Carriger. This is the first book in the Parasol Protectorate series, and it is narrated on audio by Emily Gray. This was a gift to me from Vibke, who I desperately love, and she has raved about this series for a long time, and I loved it. I loved it. I'm hooked. This is the story of Alexia Terabati, who is a person with no soul. Yeah, this sounds like a really terrible thing, but this is a book all about werewolves and vampires and, you know, supernatural, paranormal creatures in general. It's set in England in the late 19th century, so you kind of have a lot of that language that goes along with that I absolutely love. And a lot of, too, the societal values that go along with that time period. So the book opens with Alexia, who has to kill a vampire because he's attacking her, and the people who come in to investigate are much more concerned with the fact that she was alone in a parlor, unchaperoned, than they are about what has happened with this killing of the vampire. It's very funny, and this is a really entertaining series. I really loved the main character. I thought, strong, independent woman. So, you know, her family essentially thinks, you know, they're all Pride and Prejudice-y, you know. They're like, oh, she's not pale, and she's not petite, and, you know, she's not sweet. She pretty much blows that stereotype right out the window, and because of that, they think she's fat, ugly, and hard to get along with. And none of that is true. So, really strong, good example of a female lead. I loved her. I gave this a solid 4 to 4.5 stars. Loved it. Can't wait for the next book. So now let's move on to some sci-fi. Burnout by Kristi Helvig. This was narrated on audio by Suzy Jackson. And it is the story of Tora, who lives on an Earth that has been changed because the sun went like supernova faster than anybody thought it would, and it's burning up the Earth as it moves closer, as it kind of draws Earth in. So she's down underground, running out of water, wondering how she's going to get off the planet and pretty sure that she's going to die. This is a spunky character. She's got a lot of grit. She's got a lot of independence. She's very self-sufficient. Her father was in a partnership with a guy named Marcus, and Marcus has since gone off and he deals in black market weapons. And so he comes back to get her, and he says, if you'll let me know where all the weapons are that your dad made, then I'll take you with me. And she's like, no way, I'm not letting you have those. And she's willing to stand her ground even when she's going to die if she doesn't get off this planet. So it's a really interesting interplay of the way that that works out. Because you never are quite sure who's the bad guy and who's working against who. And so it's very, very good. I really, really enjoyed this. Gave it a good, like, solid 4.25 stars. And I have to say that the sequel, Strange Skies, is coming out on the 28th of this month, 28th of April. And this ended on a bit of a cliffhanger, so I am really looking forward to the next book. Unleashed, which is book 2 in the Uninvited series by Sophie Jordan. This was narrated on audio by Rebecca Gibel. This was an interesting sequel. This is a duology with Uninvited, and it's about a world where there's a gene that's been identified, and if you have this gene, you could potentially be a homicidal maniac. Sophie Jordan did a really interesting thing here. She took a real risk and she shifted romantic leads. And I have to say that that was really brave, because Tahara Mafi did the same idea with Shatter Me, that series, and you know, you kind of start rooting for one guy and then it becomes obvious that maybe you should root for this other guy. A lot of people with this book, at least in the reviews I've read on Goodreads, they were really upset that she did that. I thought it totally worked. The plot of this one wasn't as strong as the plot of the first book, but I have to say it did end well. And it tied up the loose ends, and, you know, it's a good duology, so I do recommend it. And I gave this one 4 stars. In the After by Demetria Lunetta. This was narrated on audio by Julia Whelan. This is the story of an alien invasion and a young girl named Amy who learns quickly to adapt, and she knows how these aliens operate. And at one point she finds a baby, a toddler, who is in a grocery store and not making any noise, because if you make noise then the aliens are going to find you. So she takes the baby home, and you know, that's the basic premise. Amy and Baby, as she's known, eventually get rescued. And so then it becomes kind of a, you know, dystopian idea with things, evil people in charge, you know, all that kind of thing. They mistreat her. I could not stand Amy's mother in this book. I thought she was a very poor example of a parent, and I wanted to slap her about most of the time. The book is okay. I didn't love it. I don't know. Amy was not a character that I liked over much, and the plot was kind of weak, and I don't know. I gave it 3 stars because I think it's average as these sorts of books go, but it was not above average. In February, I read Unremembered by Jessica Brody. It was book 1 in the Unremembered trilogy. So in March, I read Unforgotten, which was book 2, and then Unchanged, which was book 3. Really good series, really good, solid, above average series about a girl named Serafina who wakes up after a plane crash and she's into a body of water and she's the only survivor. A family kind of adopts her, and then she starts investigating who she is, and all kinds of things come out. And so there's a boy named Zen who knows her, and she doesn't know him, but she can't figure out why. So, you know, the whole first book is all about that, finding out who she is, and she does. And we quickly go into time travel and dystopia and sci-fi and jumping around on a timeline, which is really good. I liked Zen. Zen was one of those loyal characters I've ever met in a book, because this girl keeps forgetting him and he keeps coming back to her and reminding her of who he is. He was such a loyal character. There's another character that's just like Serafina that gets introduced in the second book, and that's an interesting relationship, a bit of a love triangle going on. And then when we get to the third book, she's forgotten Zen all over again, and things get more complicated, but it's a pretty satisfying end to the trilogy. And I have to say that, you know, once you get to the end of the first book, then the next 2 books go a completely different direction than the first book went. And that's okay, because you're set up to go that way. But I have to say, the first book doesn't lead you that direction until the very end. So, you know, for some people it might throw them. But I liked the characters. I thought the adventure was good. I liked the way that she wound up the whole thing in the end. And, you know, I gave it 4 stars. Those were also narrated on audio by Julia Whelan, and I think she did a great job. I'm finding, you know, I should stop saying that she's hot and cold with me because I like everything she narrates. I think I say that because I listened to Anna and the French Kiss and she narrates that, and I just didn't care for that at all. I think that has more to do with that book, though, than her narration. So that was March for me. If you read any of these books, you know I want to hear what you thought. I always love talking about books with you in comments. It's one of the best parts of BookTube is getting to connect with people and see what they thought and what I thought and, you know, all the particulars. So let me know. And that's it for now for me. I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.
I'm gone. You're gonna miss me when I'm gone. You're gonna miss me by my walk. You're gonna miss me by my taco. You're gonna miss me when I'm gone.